Welcome to Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name is Jesse Ott, the host of this podcast, which is all about beverage innovation. I talk with innovation pioneers from agriculture to glass. This week, I'm speaking with Pavel Martinez, Sommelier at Hotel La Casa de la Playa by Grupo Xcaret in Playa del Carmen. Pavel has been in the restaurant business his whole career, starting out as a restaurant supervisor at Rosewood Hotels Resorts in Riveria Maya. Here, he met his mentor and got the wine bug, which he carries through the rest of his career. He then managed restaurants and continued his sommelier work along the way. He also became a professor, teaching other wine enthusiasts for 10 years and has his Level 2 Wine and Spirits from WSET. I received some great insight into the Mexican beverage market and where they stand on Low and No Alc. I'm excited to follow the new types of Agave Spirits as they become more accessible in the US and to follow the progress on their wines as more and more investment is put behind these endeavors. I enjoyed talking to Pavel and learning his journey throughout the beverage industry. I also really enjoyed learning about the Mexican beverage market, and I know you will too. Thank you for listening, and be sure to subscribe to be notified of all new episodes. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name is Jesse Ott, and I have Pavel Martinez here, Sommelier at Hotel La Casa de la Playa by Grupo Xcaret. Did I say that right? Xcaret?
Xcaret, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I'm so proficient. Just kidding. I do not speak much Spanish at all. Un poquito. So how are you doing today, Pavel?
Pretty good, thank you. Thank you for the invitation to your podcast.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited. I can't wait to dig into your career and kind of what you're doing and some of the trends that are happening in Mexico. So where are you calling from currently?
Well, I'm currently in Playa del Carmen in Quintana Roo, Mexico. So this is where I eat and where I work.
So how is the weather today?
Kind of rainy. Actually, it's kind of rainy. It was raining since morning.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. It's kind of unusual to be raining that long, isn't it?
Yeah, it was pretty unusual. I think it's because some kind of a storm is coming. I saw the news and they just announced that a new storm is forming in this area. So probably that's why.
Oh no, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
So Pavel, where are you from originally?
Well, originally I'm from Mexico City.
Okay.
Yeah, I was born in 1974 there. So basically, my whole life, 30 years of my life, I live in Mexico City, and then after that, I moved to some other places, and now I'm finally here in Quintana Roo, Playa del Carmen.
Playa del Carmen. So, I haven't been to Mexico City, unfortunately, but I know that the people that have just absolutely love it and say it's a really beautiful city.
Yeah, big city, a lot of things to see and do.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's definitely on my bucket list to get to sometime, but I would definitely want someone that could speak Spanish a lot better than me, just for the ease of it. We went to Japan, and we wouldn't have been able to do half the things that we did without having native speakers plus people that live there, and it just kind of makes that experience a whole new level, of greatness, I guess, for lack of a better word. But yeah, definitely it would be better to see a big city like that by a local.
Oh yeah, that's a must in your business. If you come to Mexico City is a must.
Yeah, for sure. So, what got you into the business of, food and beverage?
Well, my career, I studied tourism. And when I was finishing my studies, I went to do some practice. My internship was in a hotel. So was the first time I got in contact with the food and beverage industry. I remember I had the chance to work for the bar, and I was a barback at that time. They gave me the role as a barback, And that's when I started realizing that it was something interesting about the beverage and bars and drinks and all this stuff.
Yeah. So what was the school like? You say tourism. Is it like managing? I mean, I guess can you expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah, it is more like hospitality management and tourism.
Okay, hospitality management.
But mainly my specialty was on hospitality management.
Okay, gotcha. Restaurants, hotels, that kind of thing.
So yeah, that's when I started working for the hotel. Yes.
And that was in Mexico City. You did your schooling there too, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah, Mexico City. And I remember this hotel was the name of the hotel was Marquis Reforma Hotel. It was a boutique style hotel, and I started working in the bar. So that's when I started like getting into this world of beverage, wine, and all these things.
So you got the bug early on. That happens a lot. Yeah, it does. It does happen a lot. I went and got my master's and then started in a restaurant. Then I got into the business because it was a lot easier to get a restaurant job than a corporate job. But they're not an easier job by any means whatsoever.
Yeah.
You know, being on your feet, going up and down stairs, serving people, breakfast, lunch, and dinner sometimes in a day is really hard. And I was in my 20s.
Yeah, definitely it's an industry that it's very interesting. It's very fun. If you really feel that sense of passion for the service and for being behind, in my case, behind the bar and serving people, and then suddenly you realize that you like that part, and that's what I'm still here on this industry.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. You kind of evolved throughout different parts of the industry. So you said you started as a bar back at a hotel, a boutique hotel. Then where'd you go from there?
Well, I started at the beginning. I started in this area. My goal was not really to be behind the bar because I wanted to be like on the reception department or concierge. I don't know.
Front of the
house. Those were my objectives at the beginning. But then I guess it had to do a lot of with my mentor, the person who was in charge of me, teaching me about the bar and the beverages. That I really got interested in it, and I must admit that thanks to this old man, that's why I got really into it, because he really taught me a lot of things about. At that time, I remember I wasn't even caring about wine or anything to drink. But he was the one to really show me that there was history, there was culture, there was much more than just having a drink, and in every drink that you have at that time.
Yeah. So it's interesting too how things have evolved, and I'm so curious to know how the cocktail revolution kind of evolved in Mexico. I mean, you being in Mexico, is a big city in Mexico. I don't know how many tourists you get there versus, where you're at now, where I'm sure there's so many American tourists. You cater a lot to us in some ways. Do you remember what that cocktail culture was and when it kind of exploded? Was it in the 90s like it kind of was here, or?
Yeah, I guess it was kind of 1990s. I started my first job as a bartender was in 1995, and I remember that was the time when the cocktails and this new evolving part of the cocktail and the cocktail bar, starting to grow in a different way here in Mexico. Before that, there was only like the style, the old traditional style of the old cantinas in Mexico. These old places where only men had access. There was a really bad ambience. Not really. It was just not for everyone. I mean, and then suddenly, yeah, they started changing into these concepts of the cocktail bar and make it more into some other kind of bars. For example, the wine bar. And yeah, I would say that after that, 1990s, 2000, that was when this new industry of the bar in Mexico started growing up and developing into different ways. That's when I saw this big change also about how cocktails were made, the offers, the new ingredients, the new brands of liqueurs that entered to the Mexican market. That's when it suddenly started to grow in many different ways.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, what kind of experience do you have, or what type of culture, being behind the bar in Mexico, does tequila play in your culture, but in the bars you worked at, and then you personally? I mean, being that that's such a huge, obviously a huge spirit coming from your country.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when someone refers to Mexico and is a drinker, immediately you think about tequila. Yes, that's the truth.
For sure.
That's a fact. But yeah, I mean, it's part of our culture. Of our culture, Mexico has been into this industry of the spirits industry, but basically mainly on tequila. We know that, for example, it's been part of this tradition of drinking alcohol in Mexico. And when someone thinks about having a drink, it's pretty much tequila. What you had the only option. And yeah, it still continues in that way. I mean, tequila has been always developing. It's an industry, or the tequila making industry is always growing. I remember, for example, that when I was starting in this industry, in the bar industry, back in 1995, there were only like around 2,000 different tequila brands. 200 different tequila brands. And today we have around according to the last information, we had around 1,200 different brands of tequila. So that means a big growing in this industry. And yeah, I mean, it's part of the Mexican culture. I mean, so that's why all the time we'll continue until a Mexican lives. A bottle of tequila will be always there, I guess.
What has tequila is obviously the dominant agave spirit here, but there are other ones like Sotol and mezcal, and I've just recently learned about raicilla, which is probably one of the best things I've ever had in the spirit world, just because it's so different. There's nothing it's not different, but it's not the same as tequila either. It's very smooth and slightly different taste profile. What have these other categories of these agave spirits played as a role besides tequila?
Yeah, as you mentioned, the agave industry has also been growing. Mainly, it was based first on tequila, but let's also remember that tequila belongs to this main category that in Mexico we consider mezcal. Mezcal is the big category that includes all the distilled spirits that come from the agave plant. So tequila was the first one to start like this big growing, and it was very popular. But besides tequila, mezcal continued to be developed in some other areas in Mexico. And some of these specific areas started producing a more specific kind of spirit. And that's when you get these new denominations or these new specifications for some specific types of agave spirits. That's the case of Bacanora. That's the case of Sotol, Raicilla. So yeah, almost every part in Mexico where you can find agaves, now you can find all these categories. Mezcal as the main category, and that is also been growing in popularity in the last couple of years. But then suddenly also these small productions of Sotol, Bacanora, Raicilla, and some other more specific started also entering into the market. I guess I consider that that's a good thing for the Mexican industry, the beverage industry, because it opens a new panorama, a new universe of drinks for all these agave spirits. Because usually we were centered only on tequila, but then suddenly we have 5, 6, 7 different now the types of agave spirits that are getting attention, that are increasing in quality. And now you can find
Yep.
pretty good expressions of the agave in these particular drinks. Like the one that you mentioned, the raicilla is growing. Sotol and Bacanora in the north part of Mexico. In the south, we have Comiteco. We have some other agave spirits.
Well, that's exciting. I know that one of my previous guests, Claire Warner, she's spent a lot of time in the on-premise and understanding the culture, cocktail culture, and she's with, I don't know if you've ever heard of Tales of the Cocktails, that's done here every year in New Orleans, but she's really on the pulse of what's coming. And that one of the key categories that she picked was the agave spirits are growing outside of the just tequila, and there's a lot of growth there here too. So I'm very excited to kind of dig my heels in the next year and really get involved and do whatever I can to help those categories grow, because I think that's really exciting and there's a lot of growth opportunity. You have so many people here that just love tequila. I mean, you have people here that just love bourbon. I mean, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, but there are people that, and they really love the stories and can really get into the brand and what's behind the brand and the people and the distillers and whatnot. So I really think there's a big future here. We've also had some big celebrity brands, which have really helped catapult that category.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, with George Clooney and The Rock and whatnot. But the thing of it is that they stood behind quality, and that makes a big difference.
Yeah, exactly. But as you mentioned, it is a category. The agave spirits category is growing. It's being developed in so many different ways. As you mentioned, probably some brands are getting the attention of some famous people from other countries. Even from here in Mexico, they are getting support from artists, musicians. But it's what always occurs with some marketing brands are entering. You start producing a lot of the product, but the quality starts going down. And today I would say that these producers, the traditional producers of these agave spirits in Mexico, are trying to protect that part in order to keep the quality of the product. They prefer now to start producing, to keep the small productions in order to maintain the quality and not enter into this big leagues market to sell more, but the quality, of course, will be the limit lower in quality.
Yeah. No, I'm anxious to learn about these other categories now, because when you think about raicilla, they have more types of agave spirit agaves that they can use, but they have to be grown in a specific area, and there's only, I think it's 16 cities or areas that can versus like 5 states, like the Weber, the agave Weber. So I'm interested to dig in and see what these other categories are and what their rules are around it, because I think that's going to be a major challenge in trying to communicate what those are to at least the American side. We know tequila very, very, very well. It's the other categories. Mezcal is also done pretty well too. I still think it's a little bit misunderstood and needs more clarification of education.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the point. It is more education about these news. They are not new. They've always been produced in Mexico, but tequila got the attention. And that's why so many people around the world, American people, European people, they only think that tequila is the only spirit that is produced in Mexico. But no, the tradition, the history goes into these other agave spirits, and then tequila was the one really got the attention. But people needs to get education on these new spirits. So, for example, me at the hotel where I work, we offer this tequila tasting, the mezcal tasting, and the agave spirits tasting, where we include bacanora, sotol, raicilla, in order to compare for the guests to understand what's the difference between tequila, what's the difference with mezcal, what's the difference sotol, etc. So basically, that's something that
what a great experience.
People like that, and that's why we are focused on these tastings, because that way we promote the traditional brands, the product that is produced in a traditional way, and not going only with the marketing and on these big marks of mezcales and tequilas that still dominate the world.
Yeah. So going back again, in 1995, you started getting behind the bar, mixing up cocktails, serving wines and stuff. So what happened after that?
Well, after that, I really got into the bar. I became a bartender. I had to learn a lot of recipes, of cocktails,
Yeah.
and that's when I
That's
and that's
really
when I started.
intimidating.
Oh yeah, yeah, it is definitely. And you know that being behind the bar, you have to learn a lot of stuff there about the different
And
types
have
of.
speed and
Uh-huh. Yeah, you have to be
it's a
efficient.
skill.
Yeah, it is a very interesting job because yeah, you have to develop so many uh, things on your skills. I mean, personally, I think always that's what I always love this profession because it made me realize that I was more than capable to do all these things at the same time. Yeah, and it was really interesting to see the results that people got really thankful with me about the service I was providing and the quality of my drinks and all. I mean, you felt like this uh, feedback from the customer, and you realize that you're doing a great job. And yeah, after
And
that,
it's what
I
you
started.
like.
Yeah, I started realizing that it was going to be my profession because I really like the service. I really like to be behind the bar. But then I started also entering into the wine world because I started also working for a wine bar at some point. And at the beginning, I was like, "Oh my God, why do people drink wine? It's awful. It tastes awful." The first time I had a glass of wine, I still remember I almost puked because it was so intense. It was sour. I mean, all the things you don't like, they were there on a glass of wine.
Don't tell
But
us which brand it was.
I don't remember, but yeah, it was a very bad experience. The first time I had a glass of wine, it was a red wine that it was panic, yeah, sour. I mean, all the things. So, but after that, I also started getting this advice from the person that work in this bar. That they started showing me how was the real and the correct way to start also drinking wine. And he mentioned it. I remember he mentioned, no, you are doing it wrong. You should start with something light, with something easy, something kind of sweet, and then after that, your palate will start developing and will start asking you for more intense flavors. And yeah, I mean, I also started getting caught into this world of wine. I realized also that it was a very interesting drink with a lot of history, culture, and I really like this also this field of the wine world, and that's when I started also becoming a sommelier.
And that's still in Mexico City.
Yeah, my first course to become a sommelier was in Mexico City. Yeah, back in was 2001, 2002, I guess. That's when I started studying to become a sommelier.
So, can you explain to us a little bit about the wine culture in Mexico? I've been there before. We talked just a minute about this before we started the podcast, but I was very impressed with the wines. I feel like it's a little bit maybe like Texas, where they don't make enough to really send it outside of Texas because the volume is enough for the state. So I don't see a lot of exports or anything like that, but the quality is certainly there, and it's pretty. I mean, I'd love to have more wines from Mexico at my disposal. It would be really fun.
Yeah, yeah. As you mentioned, wine industry in Mexico is also developing. We consider here in Mexico that the boom started in 1986 when this this winery located in Baja California in Valle de Guadalupe. It's called Monte Chanic.
Okay.
Monte Chanic was the first winery to start producing high quality wine. Before that day, wine in Mexico was really, really bad, really shitty. I mean, the companies, the wineries that produce wine was only the market was intended only to sell volume, not quality. So yeah, you could find some wineries
Yeah.
in Mexico, but the wine was really below label until 1986. Yeah, this winery, the owners, they say, no, you know what, the terroir, the weather we have, the soil, the grapes that we have, we can do something better. And that's when they started this project of Montesanic, and they created what we consider the first high quality wine in Mexico. And after that, yeah, some other wine growers, wineries started looking at this model, at this new model of the high quality wine, and they start reproducing it. They start also changing their minds. They stop just producing wine to sell amounts and not quality, and they realize that the new focus was on quality and not only the big amounts of wine. And since then, basically, that was the boom. 1990s, a lot of new wineries started appearing in this area of Valle de Guadalupe, the main wine region in Mexico, Ensenada. Around today, we consider around 80% of all wines produced in Mexico come from this specific region. And then we
Okay.
saw some other states that also started producing wine. So currently we have 15 states now that produce wine in Mexico. So yeah, the industry has been developing, and as you mentioned, the quality is also increasing. We have had this how to say, we receive a lot of the immigrants from Italy, from Spain, at different points in the history of Mexico. So these persons, these people that came with the knowledge of how to make wine, good wine in their countries, in their original countries, that they also brought this knowledge to the Mexican wine industry. And that's why we now have very high quality wines that can also compete in some international contests. And we can see, if you see the reviews on some Mexican wineries, they are very good wines right now.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you if there's any major partnerships, because a lot of times, different winemakers from France or California or Oregon or wherever will collaborate with another winery in another country. Is there is that happening there at all, or?
Yeah, there are some projects basically, yeah, in this area of Ensenada. There's some wineries from Napa Valley or Sonoma Valley in California. They are also trying to start projects investing in some wineries in Mexico, for example. So, I mean, this is not something new. I remember that at some point in history, James Concannon, for example, was one of the first oenologists and winemakers that brought some technology also to Mexico to start producing wine in a quality way. And since then, we've been having this this support from different people that makes wine in different countries. So yeah, I think that's a thing that is also promoting the new wineries that are intended into high quality wines. This how do you say, this collaborations between the wineries in some other countries and new wineries in Mexico, for example.
So, what are the major grape varietals that are produced there? And is it mostly red, or is it mostly white, or is it kind of a mix?
Mainly, Mexican wine industry is based on red wine.
Okay.
This area, the one that I mentioned in Ensenada and Valle de Guadalupe, basically you can find as main grapes, and the ones that are being developed into a big market. We have Tempranillo, for example, Nebbiolo, and Cabernet Sauvignon. I mean, those are, I think that those three red grapes are the leader. They have the leadership wine industry in Mexico. In some other states, for example, in the central part of Mexico, is more into white wines and sparkling wines, for example, also. So yeah, we can find Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, and Cava style sparkling wines. Yeah, but mainly the main market is on red wine.
So, is this something that your hotel that you work at now, do they have a Mexican wine section where they sell different bottles?
Yeah, actually, well, this hotel that I work, the Hotel Casa de la Playa from Grupo Xcaret. Probably, I don't know if you have heard about Xcaret. This is a big park that is located in the Riviera Maya area. but they grow with the parks, and now they open three hotels. There are three hotels that belong to the group, to the Xcaret group. It's Hotel Xcaret Mexico, Hotel Xcaret Arte, and the one that I work for is Hotel Casa de la Playa by Xcaret. The idea of this concept of the hotels in Xcaret is to promote the Mexican wine culture. So, for example, in my hotel, we have the all fun inclusive wines, the ones that I included, um, and we have a selection of 24 different wine labels exclusively from Mexican wineries. So our guests, they enter to the wine cellar and they can choose the bottle of wine they want. They can just take it to the room, or they can open the bottle of wine there at the wine cellar. So basically, that's the concept, to promote the
Nice.
Mexican wines. So yeah, we have a plenty selection of we have 9 different styles of red wines, 8 different styles of white wines, 4 different styles of rosés, 4 different styles of sparklings, all of them from Mexico, and even sweet wines, dessert wine. We have
Nice.
some dessert wine too.
Oh, nice. Some like a white dessert wine, or
Yeah, we have a late harvest wine and a sweet one. Yeah,
late
we
harvest.
have two
Oh, okay.
styles. Yep.
I didn't know that you had sparkling, and I certainly would have never guessed that you had late harvest wines. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah,
That's so interesting.
Mexico has been developing the wine industry, and we are experimenting with so many different styles. As Mexico doesn't have a regulation like in some countries in Europe or some other areas that have this nation of origin, basically Mexico can do whatever they want in the style of wines, and that's why we can find a lot of different styles in Mexico.
So it looks like you were also taught about wine, Universidad Anahuac de Cancun. Sorry, I butchered that one.
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's my second job. I'm a teacher also. I'm a professor. With the knowledge I have about wines, about beverage in general, I also had the chance to start teaching to the new gastronomy students or the tourism students in these universities. And that's also part of what I do. That's another profession that I have, to be a teacher in the university. So yeah, I had a chance to teach about wines, about cocktails, about the mixology, all the beverage world also for the new generation.
Wow, that's really impressive that you have that. You can do all that. Wow, fantastic. So can you talk a little bit about, I don't know how much you hear over here of No and Low, and the younger generations are wanting to drink less with less alcohol, and the wine category is dipping, and mocktails, RTDs are kind of picking up, as well as just spirit-based drinks is in general. Is that happening in Mexico too? Are you seeing any of the same trends there?
Yeah, actually, yeah. As you mentioned, it is a trend that is, I think it's getting like globally around the world. And Mexico is also getting into these new concepts of, for example, I just saw a bar in Cancun that is called Bar Zero, making reference to all the selection of cocktails and drinks they have are with no alcohol. So yeah,
alcohol.
it's something that is
here.
happening. Yeah, and also the brands, we can find now some brands of wine, some brands of spirits that are starting into this non-alcoholic beverage category. So yeah, Mexico is also getting into that.
So do you see that happening in the agave spirit world there with some of the producers in Mexico?
Well, I mean,
maybe not.
I don't know. I think I see this from the point that I'm also a teacher, and I understand how the history of alcohol and how the history of alcoholic beverage have been developed into 8,000 years of human history. And now we suddenly say, oh, no, you know what? Let's do something without alcohol. Okay, so what's the point? You better drink a lemonade or you better drink a pop or something. No? But why do you have to affect a tradition that is being done during centuries? I mean, and yeah, that's my personal point of view. Because yeah, I think these categories of non-alcoholic wines, non-alcoholic spirits is senseless. I mean, it's meaningless. I don't know. I think it's a tendency, yes, but I hopefully it won't last for many years. I mean, for example, here in Mexico, at least here in Mexico, we see some brands of these new non-alcoholic spirits that they are more expensive, even more expensive than the original spirits. So that's a thing that is not very, how to say, is not going
Attractive.
to have a good future. Yeah. So I mean, that's something that I think. I guess we are just not understanding that drinks, the alcoholic drinks, is a category that should be respected like that. And yeah, there's a category of non-alcoholic drinks that, I mean, we have so plenty options, and we can do something for that specific market. But why to try get into these projects of having a tequila with non-alcohol or a mezcal? No, I think that would be something against our main culture in Mexico. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It makes total sense. But what they're saying is that because there's so many more and more people not electing to drink or can't drink, that they're losing money in your venue for not offering it. Because if they're gonna drink, a soda or just water, you can upcharge them by offering these. But yes, from a cultural standpoint, I hadn't really thought about it that way. I don't know why. I guess because we're so trained on thinking of, the cash part of it versus so much of the cultural side of it. But that makes total sense. I mean, you're right. There's a lot of, several thousand years that we've, people have spent, generations after generations on how to get it just right and perfect and perfected and smooth it out and make it better, so I totally get that. There's certainly still two sides to the story. Um, and I personally don't see it going away just because of, these younger kids. They're not as interested as we were. I think pot has taken over their whole brain. And has kind of been more of a force to reckon than and I could be wrong. I mean, that's just some experiences that I've seen and I've had. But yeah, I don't know what the answer is. But I totally get it.
yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, yeah, it is a tendency. I also should recognize that people is asking more and more for this kind of new drinks without alcohol. But at some point, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't see a lot of future on this, but hopefully it would be like that. Another example, for example, this new category of tequila. Now, getting back to tequila, the Cristalino tequila. This is not an official category yet, but suddenly appearing to the market this añejo tequila that you filter that añejo tequila in order to get a clear, like, white silver tequila. Again, why should I do that? I mean, why should I spend a lot of time putting a tequila into a barrel and getting all the flavors and all the characteristics of an añejo tequila, and then suddenly I just decided to filter it and get away with the color, get away with so many aromatic and flavoring elements. But if you see the market now, it is a new category that is growing and growing, growing in popularity right now. Mexico, if we have a tequila category that is being sold most in the last couple of years, is the Cristalino tequila. So I mean, that's another
I wonder
example of.
why. What's the marketing behind that?
Yeah, I mean, the main idea was to focus on this new generation, these new young people, that they wanted to have the characteristics of a aged tequila, but without having all these powerful, all these elements that an aged tequila has. And then yeah, a company just decided, okay, let's filter the tequila, and, and you have a new product. And now is the most popular brand of tequila, or,
Yeah,
or category of tequila that is growing. Officially, it's not recognized yet by the Mexican laws, but it's there. So probably in the couple of years, it will be added to the category of the official category of tequilas, the Cristalino. But yeah, that's another example how new
Huh.
trends in the Mexican market are changing the specific categories and the specific types of tequilas and mezcales and all these agave spirits that we have right now.
Yeah, that's really interesting. We do have Cristalino here. I don't know what the percentage is, and I don't know how big it is. There is one producer that has it that has a great Cristalino that I've tried. But for me, I'm a little sensitive, so even I love bourbon, but it kind of upsets me, and anything aged upsets me a little bit more than anything blanco. So I didn't know if there was maybe, the filtration was kind of a cleaner product so that it wouldn't affect people as much. But I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I think is kind of senseless. Again, why should I spend so many time putting my mezcal, my tequila into a barrel, wait for 3, 5, 10 years, and then suddenly I say, okay, let's filter it and get away with the color and all these flavor. But yeah, I mean, it's the tendency in the market now, and the example is there. There are a lot of tequila brands that now they launch their Cristalino categories now, and that you can
Yeah.
find it at every bar in Mexico now.
It's interesting. It's caught on fire there. I'm just so interested into why. um, yeah. Very interesting. So when I've been to Europe, and I don't remember the last year. It's been a few years, and they just don't have the selection that we do here. When you go into a bar in the United States, there's 20 vodkas, 50 bourbons, 30 tequilas. I'm exaggerating. But we have a very wide selection of, a specific type of spirit. And when you go over to France, for example, it's like, what kind of vodka do you have? And it's like, yeah, we have Absolute, which is fine. It's just it's so different. And so when we went to Japan, it was very much the same, but the culture of everything there for me when it comes to food and beverage is different, because they have some bistros, right, where they have some cocktails and some burgers and whatever. But mainly what we saw was if you have restaurants and they serve sake or beer or maybe a highball. That's it. Unless you go to a cocktail bar specifically, and then they have a plethora of whatever brands that they have. So I'm curious, what is it like in Mexico? Is it closer to what we have here in the U.S. versus a France or Europe?
Yeah, I guess Mexico always the main market for Mexico for tourism, for example, is U.S. and Canada. So most of these concept of bars that we have in Mexico are adapted to these guests that come from America and North America. I mean, so yeah, basically, I would say it's the same idea that you share in America here in Mexico right now. We have been developing these new concepts of bars with a new mixology, trying to get back into the roots, start using a lot of products that have been industrialized, and now you have these options of more natural flavors, more natural products that are also being produced by the same bartenders, instead of using simple syrup that you make now your simple syrup, instead of using another, I don't know, liquor or another infusion that once was sold in a bottle. Now you can just make it. So I guess that's the tendency in Mexico. The new industry in cocktails and the bar cocktails are changing this idea of just producing the old style cocktails using these colorful and very attractive cocktails with a lot of chemicals in the liquors in some products.
Right.
Now you have a new tendency on natural products. So I guess that's something that is happening in so many bars around the world.
Yeah. So, do you have any mentors that you want to talk about that kind of have helped you along the way? I know you've kind of mentioned you had one when you were a bar back and kind of teaching you the ropes and getting you kind of inclinated into the hospitality
Well,
side of things.
as I mentioned, when I was working, when I was starting as a barback, I remember very, very well this old man that he was the one that really start sharing the passion about making cocktails. I still remember that the first time I entered to the bar, I saw him and he was like, "Oh my God, who are you? Why are you here?" Like if I was like an intruder into the bar, right? And I was like, okay, I'm trying to learn, so please explain what to do. But he was an old style man, so every time he was making a cocktail, and I was like trying to get into to see what was he was pouring, what he was making the cocktail. He always said, "Oh no, you know what? Go get me some ice, or go get me something." But he didn't allow me to see what he was doing. So yeah, he was very, very. I mean, close to share the knowledge about how to make cocktails. But yeah,
Huh.
suddenly I started like being so incisive and trying to see and asking questions because I started like liking this process of making a cocktail or seeing all the different styles of liqueurs and bottles, and I started asking him a lot of questions. And at some point, I guess he understood that I really wanted to learn, and I wasn't just spending my time there. And that's when he started like, okay, you want to learn? Okay, yeah. And one thing that I remember a lot is that he brought his old cocktail recipe book. It was a very old book, and he gave it to me, and he said, you
Oh,
know what?
wow.
So yeah, I still remember
That's
that
pretty
a lot
cool.
because it was really cool for me because after seeing his first reaction that he was not very uh, friendly with me, but at some point I got like his attention and he realized that I really wanted to learn. And yeah, he came one day and
Yeah.
he brought me whole recipe of cocktails, and he said, "It's for you, but promise me, you have to learn, you have to study, because I'm going to ask you tomorrow if you learn one cocktail, what is the recipe, what is the technique." And yeah, I guess this old man was the one that really had a lot of influence in my learning process about cocktails and all these things about the bar. I remember her name. His name was Memo, or Guillermo. We say Memo in this, like the short part, the short name. And I
Cool.
just knew that I, I just knew like 7 years ago that he passed away. So yeah, I mean, uh,
Oh.
yeah, it was a sad news, but I kept in touch with him after working in this bar. I then I finished my internship there, and then I got a new job in another. But I always kept contact with him, and yeah, when I received the news that he passed away, it was a big a hard moment for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. That's cool. It's cool to have someone so early in your career kind of influence you like that, and how you kind of had to win him over. It makes it that much more special,
Yeah,
because you
yeah.
guys really
Uh,
bonded.
Yeah, because after that you can. I also work with so many people that they were very professionals about also I'm very passionate about the bartending and cocktail making. But I mean, definitely in my personal experience, that was him, the person that really made me change my point of view and deciding to get into this career of being a bartender.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you have any other mentors that you had along the way that you want to mention, or any other any resources that you want to share?
Yeah, well, another person, well, as a sommelier, because yeah, when I became a sommelier, also I got this mentorship from again an old sommelier, a very respected sommelier here in Mexico, one of the first sommeliers that existed in Mexico. So Pedro Poncelis is his name. Pedro Poncelis, Don Pedro Poncelis, because he's an old man now. And again, yeah, he when I started this idea of becoming a sommelier, At that time in Mexico, there were just a few sommeliers that they started teaching, they started creating these schools to become sommeliers in Mexico. And yeah, I fortunately had this chance to meet him and to take classes with him. And again, he got me into this passion about wine and all the knowledge
Yep.
and at some point I said I want to be like him. I mean, I want to be like a sommelier like him. And yeah, I guess that's another person that had a lot of influence in the decision that I took to become a sommelier. Then after that.
That's great. Is there any resources or anything that you recommend? I don't know if it's studying for your tests or whatever sticks out in your mind.
Yeah, I mean, as a teacher right now, as I mentioned, I also have to provide of these references of this with this developing of the internet and all these the elements that we have right now to study by ourselves. There's a lot of new pages, very interesting pages, for example, in the web that Deedfor's Guide, for example, that's another one that I recommend. They have a lot of good information about cocktails, about history of the cocktails, the liquor industry. Thanks of the cocktails, as you mentioned, that's another element that it's also very interesting to follow this developing of how these the events that they make in order to create this attraction to the cocktail world is also very interesting. And I mean, there's a lot of other things around the liquors and the spirit industry. Every time I had the chance to talk to some vendors, to some specific person that are in this industry, of on the other side, not on the making, but on the ones that sell the product. That's also interesting to know how they also propose different schools, different how to say courses about spirits, about cocktails. There's a big company here in Mexico, for example, that is called Pedro Domecq. Pedro Domecq has a school specifically intended to bartenders or people who wants to become bartender. Also, Diageo, that's another big company that offers a lot of courses, a lot of study material for bartenders, cocktail bars. And on the wine side, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of new reference now in the web. Wine Folly, for example, it's a reference that I used always, and I recommend to my students the Wine Folly webpage and the book, and they also have a book. And I think we have a lot of resources now to study and to learn about drinks and beverages and cocktails and wines and everything.
My guest last week and this week is Chris Scott, and he and his wife started a WSET training course, and I love their materials. They're inexpensive for the quality that you get, and you have it for like a year or two. And that really helped me pass. I did a level 3 wine over during COVID, and those resources really helped me for sure solidify a lot of my knowledge. So I know how important those resources are to, from an educational standpoint.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of the material out.
So what are the main pain points that you experienced down there in Mexico? I know you're kind of more of the on-premise, perspective, but is there too much competition? Is there price wars? What is like some pain points you experienced down there?
I mean, definitely. I mean, because of the economical situation here in Mexico is very different from North America, U.S., Canada. I think the main pain point I would mention is about salaries. Yeah, I guess that's the main thing. Because many people that I work in this industry, in the food and beverage industry, at some point they decided to leave this industry because money is not enough, isn't enough. They are not making enough money. So I think that's a big issue here in Mexico. I have met a lot of bartenders, sommeliers, even sommeliers, that suddenly you realize that they prefer to sell departments or do something else because they are not making money in this industry. But due to the lack of interest of the big companies to pay the correspondent salary to the workers. That's I think that's the main point in Mexico, because you have all the attitude to make a good job, but suddenly you realize that your employer is just paying the minimum wage or the minimum amount, and you say, okay, what should I do? And I mean, I think that's the main pain point on this in general on the food and beverage industry. There's a lot of people that is interested in working in this industry, but at some point after working 1 or 2 years, they realize that they are not making money, and
it's the same here. It's tough, and then with the increased cost of living, it just makes it even harder. So I think that's a struggle that we have here in the U.S. as well. I don't know what the system is like there, but here they pay you a certain hourly wage, and then you really kind of bank on the tips. So I don't know if that's the same in Mexico.
Basically it's the same. Most of the workers on the food and beverage industry, the ones that are like directly connected to service, they depend on tips. They live on tips because the salary is just just something extra. I mean, it's not even enough to pay the rent or to pay your expenses. So they rely on tips from the customers, from the guests, and then that's another thing. Also, there's a lot of bad administrations on how restaurants, how hotels charge the guests for the tips, for the service. But then you realize that all this amount of money, when they pay to the employee, they just give a little amount, and the rest. So that's a big issue. I mean, as there are like no strict regulations in Mexico on this field of the food and beverage industry, that's why many businesses make a lot of bad things according to the payments on the staff.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is there, but it's certainly a problem here too. What do you feel like the trends are coming, or anything new coming up through your eyes and your experience where you're at? We kind of talked about the tequila trends. So is there anything else that, I mean, are RTDs big there? Malt based or spirit based?
I guess that's another trend in Mexico. I mean, the first one would be the Agave Spirits, because it has having a boom in the last couple of years. But then you have also this tendency on whiskey, for example, on single malt whiskey. I have seen a lot of growing on this market of the single malt whiskey industry. And I guess that's also another good trend on the Mexican market for spirits. I guess also the tendency on going into more traditional drinks from other parts of the world, as you mentioned, for example, sake, sochu. Those are tendencies that are also growing. There are some hotels here in this area of Riveria Maya that are looking specifically for professionals in sake, professionals in sochu, because they are bringing these products to Mexico. So I guess that's another interesting tendency to start also thinking about what spirits, what fermented beverage exists in some other countries, in some other parts of the world, and they are getting attention. And now they are bringing these tendencies into Mexico. For example, in the fermented beverages, this kombucha, the kombucha tendency became really nice also in the cocktail bars in Mexico here too. So I guess people is also looking for this. The customers are looking for these new experiences on trying something different. It's not the usual spirit that you find everywhere. But let me know about something specific, something that is not really common, that's the tendency that is growing, I guess.
So, do you have? I know you're on-premise person, but do you have wine in a can, wine in tetras? Do you have them wine in a box, like in your retail stores? Is that an option there?
It's starting also to grow. It's
Okay.
not really being accepted as probably in some other markets around the world. We have seen this not very prominent developing on these kind of products that wines in Tetra Pak or wines in can. But it's there. I mean, at some point we will have also to realize that the glass industry and all these things about pollution and yeah, I mean that's another thing.
Carbon
So
footprint.
probably yeah.
Yep.
At some point we will have to change into these new forms to sell wine or any specific alcoholic drink. Yeah, but yeah, now you can find wine in cans in Tetra Pak. Yeah, but they are not like really getting good attention yet.
Yeah, I'm surprised, especially in the beach areas, that they wouldn't be a little bit bigger. But it is a cultural thing. To your point, different cultures are going to adapt to it differently.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, here in Mexico, all this generation, like for example, my age, that it's almost impossible to see a wine inside a can. I mean, it's like, oh my God, what is happening to the world? But no, I mean, it's a tendency. We have to adapt these new processes of changing things about respecting the ambience and not getting into this pollution effects. And yeah, I mean, but yeah, so sometimes, I mean, probably in the short term, we'll see these changes also will be more acceptable in Mexico too.
So outside of the beverage industry, what do you like to do? What is your do you like play music? Do you travel? Do you ride bike? What is it?
Oh well, basically spend time with my family. I mean, I have my wife, my three kids, and yeah,
Aw.
every time I have a chance to have a day off, I try to be with my family. It's hard because everyone has their own lives almost done, so it's difficult to coincide at some point with the whole family, you know. But yeah, I like to read. I like to watch the TV, some specific programs about wines, about the I mean general culture about the beverage. I like to see these documentals and have my library about the beverage and wine. I like to play chess, for example. Yeah, that's another thing that I do. I like to play
Oh,
chess.
nice. Never learned it. Can't do it. Just can't do it. It doesn't work. Does your wife enjoy wine and spirits like you do? Does she watch those documentaries with you?
No, not really. That's what I guess
No.
we've been for a long time because we are not equal. Yeah, I mean, she likes when we have a go out and we have a glass of wine, or when I brought a bottle of wine and she only has one glass, two glasses. She's not more into it like I do. And yeah, well,
It's okay. It's a
she
good
had
balance.
she had to have some defect. Well,
Hey, you can't be perfect all the time.
you can be perfect, exactly. But yeah, I mean, she supports to all the things I do. She's my biggest support, and yeah, but I had to teach her to also how to drink wine and how to drink different styles of.
That's awesome. That is so cool. Well, Pavel, this has been really fun and a really great experience. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me and letting us hear your story, and your insights into the beverage industry and the Mexican market has been really interesting. So thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, of course. I'm always curious of different people's outlook and how they got in the business and why, and different people, because I think along the way different people have mentors or people that have influenced certain things to kind of encourage them to keep going, kind of like what your story with your mentor. And yeah, I love it. Thank you so much. This has been really fun. Now, next time we're going to have some Mexican wines and talk some Mexican wine biz.
Yeah, let's schedule another podcast, and I will bring some Mexican wines, and I'll show you some Mexican wines too.
Yeah. I don't know if I can buy them here, but I could probably, I don't know, maybe I could buy them. I don't know. Like, get them somehow.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because as I mentioned, Mexican wine industry is still on the growing process. So most of the wines that produce are for the inner market. Just a few big companies are the ones that have the ability to export wine to US or Canada or Europe even, but just like 4 or 5 big companies have the ability to do it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it makes total sense.
Hopefully that in the next decade, even here in Mexico, this national organism that regulates the wine in Mexico has has launched the new program for the developing of the industry, and the objective is to grow the Mexican wine industry up to 10 times in the next decade. So hopefully that will work. Yeah.
So they have the geography, they have the land, they just need the technology, I guess.
Yeah, and the market, basically, because as long as there is no market interested in Mexican wines, of course, it's not going to grow. But that's another big thing for the Mexican wine industry, to start looking for new market and showing that Mexico it makes good wine too.
Just out of curiosity, and if you don't know, just you don't know. Do you know what the breakout of wine, beer, and spirits is in Mexico versus like the U.S.? Like, is it 5% wine, 45% beer, 30%, 30 whatever percent remaining spirits? Is beer bigger than spirits? Because I would imagine it probably is.
Yeah, definitely. The main market, I would say beer, it's around, I would say 60-70% of the beverage market is beer. Then
really?
30% would be spirits, and then just 10%, 5% wine. Wine is still on a long way to go. But beer is the main market.
I figured it's pretty small.
Yeah.
But wow, that's a lot. Okay. Yeah, I knew it was probably more than, spirits, because it just makes sense.
Yeah, definitely beer is our national drink. On the numbers, a lot of people drinks beer in Mexico.
Yeah. Well, very cool. Well, this has been delightful. Again, thank you, Pavel. I will let you get back to your family. Yeah, let's keep in touch. Maybe we'll get down there to visit you sometime.
Excellent. So have a chance to visit Playa del Carmen and go to Casa de la Playa Hotel. I'll be there to receive you there.
We'll do that agave spirit tasting, because that sounds really fun.
Oh, yeah.
I would love to be able to try them all together like that. That would be so cool. Really the only way that you can differentiate the different flavor profiles of each, is to kind of taste them against each other.
Yeah, that's why we decided to do this agave spirits tasting, because it's very different when you try mezcal, tequila, bacanora. So that's when you realize that each one has their own profile, their own particularities.
Yep. Well, is there anything else, Pavel, you want to mention to the audience before we say goodbye?
Well, no, just make an invitation to people to, if you see a bottle of Mexican wine, if you see a bottle of agave spirit made in Mexico, because we know that some other countries are starting to produce agave spirits, but if it's from Mexico, be sure that it's a high quality product. So I will invite you to try Mexican wine, Mexican spirits. Yeah, it's growing, the quality is there, so you will be more than surprised about how these new products are achieving new goals in the beverage market.
Yeah, I love it. Well said. Alrighty. Okay, well, have a good evening, Pavel. Thank you again.
The same for you.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. This week's episode was produced by Fedora J Productions.